This is D'Lo Brown. Right now, you're watching the OMG podcast. Now recognize that. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the OMG Wrestling Podcast. You can find this on YouTube and omgwrestling.com. We don't have this on iTunes right now. Maybe that'll be something in the future. I've been thinking about iTunes. There's an easier way to find this. But Chase, how's it going?
Very, very good. Just got back from fishing and this awesome interview. It's a real treat for you guys. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, this is a really awesome interview with Thrasher. It's something that I've been looking forward to. And after talking to him, I gotta say, he's one hell of a guy. Like, he's probably one of my favorite interviews we've done. No offense to anyone else, but he's just great. He's just great to talk to. And I think it's great that we get to talk to guys that are in the business. And when you talk to guys like this, like, they could be assholes, they could be dicks, because, they've had their success. It's, some people are just like that. But no, everybody that I think I've talked to thus far has been super nice and super cool. So I really love that.
Yeah, I mean, he was such a genuine guy. Hardworking man who appreciates the fans. That pretty much sums him up. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Again, if you want to sign up for a free 30-day trial, go to omgwrestling.com/prime. Something I want to let you know about, Chase, you might not know this. I just got an email today. Amazon Prime now has a new benefit. They launched Instant Video a while ago, but now they have Prime Music.
Wow.
Yeah, unlimited ad-free access to over 1 million songs and hundreds of playlists for free. So, again, if you want a free 30-day trial, omgwrestling.com/prime. Again, music. I'm going to have to download the app. They have the app for Kindles, and also you can get it on Android or iOS. So, it's out there. I just thought I'd put that out there. But one thing I want to let you know, I will be on the road, so when you're watching this, I will probably be driving to Minneapolis to hang out with Tubby Emu, which is going to be awesome. We're kind of just going to live on the road. I don't really know where this is going. I don't know. Tubby just came at me and he's like, let's do this trip, and we're going to go. I think we're going to go camping and do stuff and travel, go to indie shows. There's 2 indie shows somewhere in Minneapolis somewhere, and then we're coming back the following week to go to Magnum. So it's going to be a packed week for me. We do have a stuff going on if you want to support that journey. You can go to omgwrestling.com/TNT. I don't know if you saw that poster, Chase, but
yeah, I did.
We tried to make it the most indie wrestling type poster we could come up with, with all the different fonts and colors and stupid stuff. So it's going to be awesome. You can support us. And anybody that does support us on this journey, if you want to, we're gonna go to gas stations and get postcards and mail them out to cool people and get little knickknacks and fun stuff like that. So if you do support us at all, we'll just send you a nice little postcard and welcome from bumfuck wherever we're at. So that'll be cool. But I do want to not waste any more time, Chase. Anything else you wanted to talk about, reiterate before we get into this interview?
Not really. I mean, it's an awesome interview, you guys. I keep saying you'll enjoy it, but I'm promising it. This is my favorite interview by far. Here we go.
All right, guys, we're joined by one half of the Headbangers, Thrasher. Thrasher, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you guys?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Anytime.
So do you want me to call you Thrasher? Is that what you're going by these days?
I don't give a shit. That's what my mom named me.
Your mom named okay.
Oh, I don't care. Thrasher, Glenn, just don't call me late for dinner.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to do this interview. We're kind of going to do sort of a just getting to know you interview. We can learn about you. Just wanted to know how you first got into wrestling.
It was weird. I was never a big wrestling fan back then in the early '90s and late '80s, but I was always into sports. I played football from the time I was 7 years old, and then I played all the way up through high school. I actually wrestled in high school, and I was actually on the basketball team my freshman year, and I made the varsity team because I was 6'4" and tall, skinny kid and everything else. And then my brother came up to me and goes, see, you're playing that basketball because you can't do a real sport like wrestling. So the next day I quit basketball and I went into wrestling, and I wrestled JV my freshman year. And I was pretty good at it. I ended up being ranked 26th in the state of New Jersey, which is a very good wrestling state. So I was pretty happy with my 4 years there, and I got out of high school. And when you graduate, Larry Sharp, the owner of the Monster Factory, had a way where he would send postcards to all graduating seniors that were in athletics. So I got a postcard in the mail for a free tryout when I was graduating. And then the week before that, I had it's called AAUs. It's a high school wrestling tournament. And so I went to this AAU tournament, and I noticed across the street here was this wrestling school, and it was called the Monster Factory. So I went over and I peeked in the window. I went, oh, that's cool, and everything else. And that's neat. You know, I've seen it from time to time. Back in the day, they used to have it, you know, and anybody from Philadelphia area will know they used to have Spectrum Wrestling on Prism TV. This is probably one of the first paid, you know, cable channels out there. It was called Prism. Mm-hmm. And so it was back at the old Spectrum over in Philadelphia, and, you know, once a month they would have it come on and everything else. And it was all neat. I used to watch it maybe, you know, every other month. I was never a big fan of the pro wrestling then, because you had all these big guys. You know, you had Big John Studd, you had Andre the Giant, you had, you know, Hulk Hogan. These guys were, you know, over 300 pounds. They were huge. And here I am, 6'4", soaking wet, maybe 170 pounds. So it was always, you know, something neat and in the back of my mind, but it was never something I said, oh, I'm going to do that when I get older. I'm going to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
I went and I did the AAU tournament. I looked in the window. I said, oh, that was cool. And then a week later, I got a postcard in the mail from the Monster Factory offering me a free tryout. So I would call the number, and Larry Sharp always had a way of answering the phone. You would call up, and he would be like, this is the Monster Factory. Get Monster Eyes! And I had to call 3 or 4 times, because every time he did that, I got scared and I hung up the phone. I was like, oh my God, he scared me. So it took me a good bit to do it. So I finally went down there. It was like right around, I don't know, the end of June. It was a year after I graduated, because I went to computer school and I got a computer degree in computer operations of the big mainframes. Mm-hmm. So I was working 9 at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. I was 19 years old. That wasn't too good of a way of life for a 19-year-old and everything else. I said, screw that. Let me go down there and try it. So I get my mom and, you know, my mom's husband, my stepfather at the time. We all get in a car and we go down there, and I walk in and there's all these lights and cameras and all these people all around. I'm going, oh my God, this is just so unbelievable. Here they were doing a special on the Monster Factory from Australia. You know, the pit bulls were down there, and it was all these glitz and glamour and all these lights and everything else. And, you know, there's maybe 5 or 6 of us that were trying out at the time. And what Larry would do is you got the new guys in the ring, and he would show them how to fall. And then he would also show them how to run the ropes. And the hardest thing about wrestling is falling without putting your arms down. The natural instinct is when you're falling backwards is you're going to put your arms down. Yeah. You do that in wrestling, you're going to break your arms.
Yeah.
And the other important thing is to always keep your chin tucked. And because if you don't, you're going to knock yourself out on the canvas, because it is hard. So I went down there and I saw all these guys go in the ring and try. And they were doing the tryout and going through everything and everything else. And, you know, I did everything. You know, the one thing is you got to do a front flip and land on your back. And it's like, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm going to do a front flip and land on my back. Oh, my God, I'm going to shit myself right now. So you go through all the falls and everything else, and then the most important thing is running the ropes. Everybody thinks it's the easiest thing in wrestling to do. It's absolutely, there's a wrong way of doing it, and there's a right way of doing it. He doesn't tell you the right or wrong way of doing it. He lets you just run the ropes however you want. Now, back in the day, he had the real ropes, the real ropes. He still has it to this day, where they're just taped. There's regular cow ropes, and they're just taped up. So if you hit them with your ribs, you're going to leave a nasty bruise right there. If you hit them with your back, you're safe. He doesn't tell you that then.
Yeah.
So I'm getting all these bruises and everything else, and I'm like, oh, my God, this is great. So we're all sitting there, and he calls everybody in the office one at a time. And the one thing about Larry Sharp is, in this Monster Factory, they don't just take anyone. Most businesses, they don't care about anything except the money.
Right.
Larry was more worried about the reputation of his school, which, should be applauded, because the guy just didn't take anybody. He only took people that he could see a future in. There were some guys that he saw a future in. It didn't pan out that way. I've seen it myself. You could try out and you look real good and everything else, and then you come back in, you're doing everything, and you just don't get it. So he's bringing these guys in. This one guy comes out, and he's all pissed off. I'm like, what did he tell you? What did he say? He told me that, I didn't have it. And I said, what do you mean you didn't have it? You said that you had all the money with you right now. And at that time, it was $3,000 to train. That was the flatline price. He's like, yeah, he wouldn't take my money or nothing. He told me that, I should find another line of work. I was like, holy shit, I'm not even going in there. So eventually it came to my turn, and I go in, and I go, listen, before you say anything, I loved it. I had a great time doing it. I appreciate the opportunity. But I was 175 pounds at the time. I used to wrestle in high school at 158. So I'm 6'4", 170 pounds. I was a skinny shit is what I was.
Yeah.
So he goes, listen, kid, in that Larry Sharp voice, listen, kid, it's going to be a lot easier to teach you how to do all these flips and jumps and everything else at 170 pounds than it is 220. That alone sold me on the school. I gave him $1,500 down. I gave him $100 a week, and I was sold. And I started in June, and my first tour to Japan was in, I want to say, December.
Oh, wow.
It was the first time I went to Japan, yep. Everybody always told me, don't go up there and do them jobs for WWF at the time. Don't be one of them jobbers and everything else. And another thing Larry Sharp said to me, he goes, you know what? It's a lot easier making this shit look believable, getting an ass whooping, than it is whooping somebody's ass. And if you really think about it, it is so very true. Anybody can go in there and make it look believable by whooping somebody's ass. But can you make it look believable getting your ass whooped?
Right.
Yeah, Larry's a great man. He's just so smart for the business. I mean, he knows everything.
Absolutely. There's more things that guy's forgotten than I even know. So, yes, it couldn't have worked out better for me or, anything else than going to that school. He was a great, I looked at him not only as a mentor, but I looked at him as a very close personal friend. I still talk to Larry today. We're very close. And, I hope he's there on Saturday. I heard that he might not be there. He might be there. I don't know. So
hopefully he is. I mean, he has he had like the cancer scare for a while, so he hasn't been to many of the past couple shows. But hopefully he can still make it.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
You became.
So that's how the whole thing started. Go ahead.
Oh, you became Larry's assistant and began training the students, including your tag team partner Mosh. How was training students?
It was weird. It was neat. It was an absolute honor that he felt that much about me to train upcoming students and stuff like that. I trained D-Lo. I trained Reckless Youth, also from New Jersey. D-Lo Brown. I trained him. Chaz, I trained him. Everybody wants to, hear it. I trained the Big Show. The Big Show was at the Monster Factory. He was trained at the Monster Factory for the first 2 months he was in this business. Regardless of what Big Show wants to say, he was trained at the power plant. He was not. He was initially trained at the Monster Factory. There's photos, there's articles, there's proof behind what everybody's saying. So I don't know why, Paul is saying that he wasn't trained there. I don't know. I don't care. There's proof that he was. He was trained at the Monster Factory. That's where he started. And it's a shame, too, because when Paul came down there, he was the most agile, gifted athlete I've ever seen. He was, 375 pounds, 55 pounds at 7'2". He just came out of, he was in the Boston Celtics farm team for basketball, which I don't know if anybody knows that or anything else. And he also had somebody sponsoring him for wrestling and everything else. So he had somebody paying his way
for
all of it. So he was a gifted, very athletic guy for being 7'2". But to go back to what it was like training people, it was fun. It was neat. It was, I sat in the office with Larry and I saw him turn down people. I saw him say, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how much money you want to pay me. My reputation of the school rests on the people that come in and out of it. So with that being said, he could pick and choose who he wanted to represent the Monster Factory and stuff like that. So, my hat goes off to him because, there was a lot of money that he passed over, just because he didn't think that person was suited for the business.
Right. And I did kind of want to know, how did you get into the WWF? How did you get in contact with them? Or
It wasn't any, I always went up there and did the job matches and everything else. I was on the second ever Monday Night Raw. It was against Marty Jannetty.
Okay.
The second episode of Monday Night Raw, I was on it.
That's awesome.
I was at the very first one, and it was neat. It was definitely an eye opener. I mean, you saw a lot of the ins and outs. You saw how these people made careers out of it and everything else, and it was something at that time I was like, yeah, I could see me going farther in this and everything else. But the benefit that we had then is we got to meet a lot of people. You got to network.
Yeah.
And with the networking, you had Jim Cornette that was up there at the time. You had, Jerry Lawler that was up there at the time, who both had their own territories. And, one was in Knoxville, Lawler was in Memphis. So you had different territories that you could go to.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't so much that, how we got into the WWF. It was the fact that we could go to one of these territories and work on your in-ring ability, your interviews, your characters. You could work on all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got to network and meet a lot of people through that. And Larry would always have monthly shows just like he does now. And he would bring in a lot of these guys, and he always told you, don't open up your mouth in the locker room, just sit there and listen. You always sit there and listen to the veterans, and that's another downfall of our business today. You got all these young kids coming up and think they freaking know everything, and they don't. They don't know jack shit. And, it's really hurt our business, I feel.
Right.
So you got all these kids, they put up a ring in the backyard, and they put on these $5 shows and call themselves wrestlers and want to bust light bulbs over their head and crash through tables, and it doesn't mean jack shit to anybody but, them and their family and friends go, ooh, that was cool. No, It wasn't cool.
And they're just taking years off their life.
For nothing.
Yeah, for maybe like 10 or 15 YouTube views,
Right, exactly. So, the funny story about how D-Lo used to come down and, Reckless Youth, they would come down together. and there would be a bunch of them come down, and Larry would rent the ring out for birthday parties, for, this, that, and another thing. They would come down, they would rent the ring out, and they would put on their own show. It was one of the first things that I've ever seen where these kids would come down and they would put on a show and stuff like that, and they would videotape it for either themselves. I don't even think they put it on the internet back then. I don't know if the internet existed back then.
Probably not.
But I finally went up to D'Lo, and I said, you don't need that much training. Let me talk to Larry and see what we can do and see if we can get you in here and get you training. So lo and behold, he came in. He was one of the trainees that worked underneath of me, and he was also the very first person to ever take the stage dive. I sat on D'Lo's face a lot of times doing that move. But, as tough as he is and everything else, he laid there and took it. He took it every single time. No matter how much I would land on his face, he sat there with us until we got it right. So kudos to D'Lo for putting up with my ass in his face for so many times until we got the stage dive down right. So, and then after, Chaz got into the business, he was only in the business maybe 3 weeks, and I was taking him up to the WWF for doing extra matches and stuff like that. One of his first matches was against Adam Bomb.
Oh, nice.
So it was Adam Bomb or Godfather or, one of them guys at the time. I don't think it was Godfather. He was Papa Shango at the time. Yeah. It was either Papa Shango or Adam Bomb was one of his first matches, and he was like, there's no way I'm ready for this. I'm like, relax, they won't pick you. There's so many other guys. Don't worry about it. But, they always took the guys that came up, and they were extras, and they were from the Monster Factory because they had a good reputation. They knew how to bump. They knew how to get the superstars over. So, he got picked, and he was scared to death. But it was a good time. It was a way to break into the business. He was in the business maybe, 4 months, and we took off to Memphis, and we wrestled down for Jerry Lawler as the Spiders. And we wore, hoods and masks and everything else, and, that's how we started down there. And we were down there about a year, 8 months. And then we went out to, Burr Prentice had a federation out in Arkansas. So we went over and we did that. And then, I knew Cornette, and then we went over to Cornette and we said, hey, we want to come back over this way. We want to work for you. And he was like, great, guys. I love your guys' work, but I can't stand the hoods. So he was like, let me come up with something and everything else. I got, a tag team that's leaving the area right now, which was the Gangsters. So when we actually started with Smoky Mountain, we took the Gangsters spot in Smoky Mountain. And Jim Cornette was the one that came up with the Headbangers gimmick, the name, everything.
Oh, nice.
We just took it one step farther. He came up to us and he was like, listen, guys, I went to this concert. Now, you got to picture Jim Cornette at a Danzig concert, which I still to this day can't figure it out. But he said he went to a Danzig concert because he knew Glenn Danzig. And he said, I saw all these guys with tattoos all over their head, piercings all over the place, and they were just crazy. They had their head shaved, and, we always had tattoos. We always had the body piercing. And I was losing my hair at the time anyway, so I just shaved it off. And he was like, I got the perfect gimmick for you guys. I'm going to call you guys the Headbangers, Mosh and Slasher. We're like, Jimmy, Slasher, really? Yeah. There's a guy in heavy metal called Slash. He was like, all right, Thrasher then. So I was like, all right, I want to be Mosh. And he's like, Chaz was like, no, I'm Mosh. You be Thrasher. I was like, damn it, why do I have to have the long name? God damn it. So it takes me twice as long to write the name Thrasher than it does for him to spell Mosh.
Yeah.
So, and that's how he started. And Cornette wanted us to be over-the-top heels. And at the time, we were wearing the heavy metal shirts, but we were wearing black shorts. And we looked an awful lot like PG-13, who was running the same area at the same time.
Right.
So we were, well, he wants us to go over the top. He told us that he saw somebody on TV wearing a wedding dress and everything else. And then we saw the guy from Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose, wearing a kilt. And we're like, oh, my God, we're in the Deep South. He wants us to be bad guys. What a better way than to wear a skirt. So here we are in the middle of the Bible Belt in Salvation Armies from here to Memphis, from Knoxville to Memphis, in the ladies' area trying on skirts. So you see two guys exactly. You see two guys that are 6'4" going, "Hey, does this look good on me?" And yelling up and down the aisles and everything else. It was funny. So as soon as we wore the skirts, it just went way out of control. I mean, the people down south just hated us to no end. So, and that's how that came about. And then Jim Cornette was closing down Smoky Mountain. So what he was trying to do was trying to get all the guys that he had down there hired by Vince. And at the time, Vince was kind of transforming the extras, the jobbers, to more competitive matches. So what he was doing is he was hiring guys on part-time contracts. Now, what the part-time contracts were is they were strictly TV contracts, is what they were. You came to TV Monday, Tuesday, that was your contract. You came, 4 times a month, that was it. So you did Monday, Tuesday. So you came to TV, you got paid 8 times in a month. So it was great. We could get out of the contracts whenever we wanted. There was nothing in there about anything working for anybody else.
Oh, wow.
We got TV time. We had no merchandising in there and everything else. So we took it and we were like, you know what? We're going to get ourselves over. We always knew how to do it and everything else. And the first time we went out there, and back then, there was the whole big thing about Marilyn Manson. Oh my God, he's Antichrist and all this other stuff. And don't let your kids go see him and everything else. And everybody's wearing the black, everything, face paints and everything else. So we just monopolized on it, and we were like, you know what? Who gives a shit what you're wearing? As long as you're not hurting anybody, why do you care? So I guess that got over with the kids of that time period, and we basically got ourselves over, much like Zack Ryder did.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to ask you about the Flying Nuns, though. Any stories from that?
The Flying Nuns. That thing was so funny. What Vince wanted to do is we were building on our popularity, and it's when we started doing Shotgun Saturday Night from all the bars and stuff like that up in New York City. We were always on that show because we lived in South Jersey at the time.
Yeah.
So he would always book us on that thing because it was cheaper for him. So he was like, I came up with this idea. He goes, did you ever see Sally Fields back in the day? And the show was called The Flying Nun. I'm like, no, I don't remember that. He's like, yeah, she had this big giant hat. It looked like an airplane and stuff like that. He goes, I'm going to call you guys The Flying Nuns. You know what? It was a gimmick that Vince came up with. We were like, okay, whatever you want us to do, Vince, we'll do anything that you want. So, we did all the costume stuff for it. We were doing all the pre-tapes. The funniest pre-tape that we did is we were up in New York City at the very, very large church up there, the big popular church. I forget what it's called. But we get out of the limo, and our instructions were go up there, act like you're praying and everything else, and they're going to do the tape us doing it. So we're up there, we're bowing our heads and acting like we're in prayer, and son of a bitch doesn't church let out. Church lets out. Here comes this old lady, comes up and sees the nun outfits and starts coming over, and she's praying next to us and everything else, and she looks up and she sees the face, the facial hair, and she looks over at Chaz and sees his facial hair. She sees my nose ring and everything else. She starts wailing on us with her purse and everything else, and we see the window and the limo go down, and Vince stick his head out the limo going, get in the limo! So we got in the limo and we took off, and next thing you know, he's getting all these letters from all these churches and everything else, and that was a short-lived thing. Because what they were going to do is they were going to turn it into, we were going to start wearing anything and anything to the ring. just so we could get into a fight.
Right.
And he was going to say, look, headbangers are so crazy. They don't care what they wear to the ring. They're going to call themselves whatever they want. They're going to do whatever they want, whenever they want. So it would have been really good, and it was going to be a really good thing for us if it would have went over the way Vince wanted it to. But out of our control, and then we just started back as the Headbangers again. So, you know, and you know, that went over really, really well, better than anybody thought.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, it's funny because it's the same exact thing that Zack Ryder fell into. He went out and he got himself over. No matter how many times he got beat, people loved him, and he loved him. They still, to this day, he's probably, you know, he fell into the headbanger syndrome, I call it, where, you know, he got himself over. He could go out there right now, have a 5-star match, get beat, and people would love him because they buy into him. Yeah. They believe the game. They want to care about him. You know, they relate to him. Back in that day, people related to us. The kids related to us, you know, because of the music, because of, you know, what we were wearing, about the message we were sending out and everything else, which, you know, it's a message that they still try to get over. You know, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Jesus Christ, I'm going to take that horn and shove it up your ass. But,
no, to your credit, I have to say that it's always it's also just living the gimmick and embracing it is probably what helped it.
And you know what's funny is it wasn't a gimmick. We listened to Marilyn Manson. We listened to Guns N' Roses. We listened to that type of music. That it wasn't far fetched from who we really are.
Right.
You know, we go that way. You know, my kids fall asleep and I'm drawing on their face. You know, with marker. Stuff like that, you know. I still do on everybody and anybody I can. It's just that's just the way I am. I like to have a good time, and you know, people are like, "Oh, well, you're older." I don't give a shit. That doesn't mean I'm dead.
Yeah.
You know what? It's so funny too because I'm in better shape now than I have ever been in my entire life.
That's great.
It's funny because I just turned 45 on last Friday. Friday the 13th, I turned 45, and I am in better shape than I was when I was at the peak of my WWF days.
That's crazy.
WWE.
That's great.
So, yeah, I'm very, very happy about that. And, you know, and I run a health club. You know, I'm still in the health business, kind of, sort of, you know, with working out and everything else. You know, back then it wasn't, you know, something that I hung my hat on that much. You know, Bob Holly can attest to that because he always, you know, used to get on my case about me going to the gym. And I always found a reason why I shouldn't go.
Right.
So, you know, I still talk to Bob today and send him pictures and everything else. And he's like, Jesus Christ. You know, 3 years ago, you know, this month I was 310 pounds. And I'm 220 pounds right now. So I've lost, you know, a person.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I got out of wrestling in a every which way possible. You know, I ran a pizza chain. I was a supervisor for a pizza chain, and I think I did more pizza testing than I did selling. So I gained an astronomical amount of weight and, you know, paid the price. And then, you know, I up and moved my family down to Florida. I got back in the gym. Chaz lives, you know, 12 miles from me. I see him, talk to him pretty much almost every single day. You know, and I just got back in the gym. I was tired of living like that, and I'm better for it now. So I'm extremely grateful for my last 3 years. Hopefully, it put, you know, 3 years of life back on me.
Yeah, for sure.
And you competed in multiple WrestleManias, but I really remember at WrestleMania 13 when you guys won the four-corner tag team match to become the #1 contenders.
Here's the funny story about that. We weren't even under a guaranteed contract or a full-time contract at that time. We were still part-time.
Oh, wow.
We were still under a contract.
Wow.
So what is it like competing at WrestleMania? How is that different from every other show?
It's weird. It's the hype. that goes around it. It's once you're in there, it's a little bit more involved. I guess the best way to say is it's more, the hype is there. There's more adrenaline flowing through your body and stuff like that. And there's more anxiety and everything else. It would probably be, if you asked a guy from, a Super Bowl team, what's it like playing in a Super Bowl? It's any other game, but it's the hype around it. It's the meaning behind it. When we competed at WrestleMania 13, I had no way in the world did I ever imagine we were going to go over all those other teams in that match, in that four-corner match. There was no way. Absolutely no way. You had LOD in there. You had, Doug and Phil. You had the Blackjacks and no, you didn't have the Blackjacks. You had the Godwins. You have, four really good teams in there, and it was incredible. It was a feeling that I could never put into words what it was like or express to somebody, because it's just something like, you ask somebody that won the Super Bowl, what was that like? Oh my God, it was so exciting, but you don't know until I guess it happens to you. So it was an unbelievable feeling. It still is to this day. I still get the goosebumps when I talk about it.
And how surreal was the moment at Ground Zero in 1997 when you guys became the tag team champions?
There's a funny story behind that too, because we get to the building and the first person we see, they're already done the production meeting and everything else. And Cornette's like, "Come here, guys, come here." So he takes us into the parking lot, the underground parking lot, takes us all the way downstairs. And we're like, "Jimmy, what the hell's going on?" He's like, "No, come here, I got to tell you something. So we're in the bottom ground of the parking lot next to a dumpster. And he's like, "I brought you down here." We're like, "Jimmy, please, are we in trouble? Are we getting let go? Are we fired?" He's like, "No." He goes, "I brought you guys all the way down here because I wanted to be the first one to tell you guys that you guys are winning the belts tonight." We're like, "All right, cool." He's like, "No, guys, you guys are going to be the WWF Tag Team Champions." We're like, "Yeah, we heard you. That's great." He goes, No. I brought you down here so you guys can act like the idiots you are and jump around and everything else like I know you want to do." We're like, "Oh, okay, so we're going to do that." So we're jumping. We're jumping around, and we're being the idiots that we were. He's like, "That's why I wanted to bring you all the way down here so nobody else saw you guys act like that." So it was great. It was almost like full circle. Jimmy did so much for us, getting us in there and getting us the opportunity. And then he was the one to tell us that we were winning the tag belts. It meant a lot. And then once I left wrestling and I came back, we saw Jimmy, at WrestleMania when it was in Miami, and he came down here and he was still with Ring of Honor at the time. And we're like, "Hey, Jimmy, we're ready." Last time Cornette saw me, he was like, "Whoa, what did you eat, New Jersey?" I was 300 pounds when he saw me, and then he saw me and I lost all the weight. He said, watched our match. He goes, it was like 1997 all over again. He goes, "Let me see what I can do for you guys." He goes, "Bring you in the Ring of Honor." So we were trying to use that as a way to, come back and make one last run, either with TNA, Ring of Honor, WWE, whatever. So then he came up with the Guardians of Truth, and we were going to do that whole Guardians of Truth thing. And then eventually take the hoods off and everything else. That was all well and good, but Jim Cornette told us a long time ago that he hated hoods, and now he's putting us back under hoods. It was the most awkward time because you got to remember, 15 to 18 years, I've been wearing a skirt and boxer shorts and combat boots in the ring.
Right.
Now you want me to wear wrestling boots and skin tight spandex? It's weird. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So had a lot of fun with that. We had, once we took the hoods off and we did it in Maryland, we got, downtown Baltimore, Maryland, we took the hoods off there and the people went nuts. Everybody always had an idea it was us, but they didn't know for sure until we took the hoods off. And we had, the next TV, we had a great match with the Briscoe brothers. It was an unbelievable match. I felt, everybody else felt the same way. We never got called back for TV again. And then we found out that Cornette left. So we were there to the Cornette.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, yep.
So I have to ask you about WrestleMania 2000. You were in that hardcore battle royal. I think you're
37 seconds.
37 second hardcore champion. What was it like competing in those hardcore matches like that?
It was a ball. It was a lot of fun, and you always wanted to stay away from Bradshaw. You never wanted to go near Bradshaw, because if you went near Bradshaw, it was getting really fast.
Yeah, I'm sure you wanted to. Oh, I'm sure you wanted to stay away from that clothesline.
Absolutely. Been on the receiving end of that a couple of times, and yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, they were always real fun. They were real easy. You know, it was kind of, you know, anything goes kind of thing, and it was a ball. It was a lot of fun.
I've always wondered, do you still have the Hardcore Championship? Because, I mean, I know sometimes it would change like 8 or 10 times in one night, and I always wondered if everybody that got it got to keep the belts, just like how they do with all the other titles. No?
Nope. Nope, unfortunately, no.
That's right.
That's sad.
I do want to know, back in July of 2000, you and Mosh broke up. Whose decision was that? Did you guys come to decision, or was it higher ups, or how did that work?
It was the fact that I went out because I had knee surgery, and I went out with an injury, and it was my ACL. I had to get my ACL replaced, and my meniscus was torn. So I had to get. It was a long time coming back, and they didn't want to leave him idle for that long. So they were just coming up with something, you know, for him until I was able to get back. So, and then once I came back, you know, I was so badly out of shape and everything else, and they just opened up, I guess, their training center down in Memphis and stuff like that. So I came back. We did a couple matches. They saw that I needed to get out more ring work and stuff like that, and they sent me down to Memphis. I guess that's when Chaz and D'Lo started their thing, and you know, I could never get that injury out of my head. It was more of a mental game than it was physical with everything, and I couldn't feel like I could do what I always did before, and I always told myself if I ever felt like that, I was going to step away from it. I never wanted to be the guy that goes, "Oh, I remember you, and you know you can't do the things that you used to do." So I stepped away, and you know it was kind of a separation between, you know, me and the office and stuff like that. They understood, you know, it was strictly all in my head. You know, I could wear all the knee braces I wanted to and everything else. It was psychological. And you know, when you do something that bad to your knee, it took me 9 months to come back from the first one, and then I had a second surgery. It was another 4 months from that one, so I was out almost a whole year. And it was a more mental thing than anything else. And then, you know, after I left, they couldn't find anything to do with Chaz, and you know, so they ended up releasing him too.
I have to ask you, what are your thoughts when Chaz was doing the beaver cleavage thing?
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I think that was short-lived, wasn't it? And then he did like sort of like a shoot promo or something on the character, something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole GTV thing was supposed to be me.
Oh, was it really?
The whole angle was GTV. Back in the day, it was supposed to be me. Then it was supposed to be Goldust. Then it was supposed to be this one. You know, it was supposed to be me that found out about her putting on the makeup and claiming that she was being abused by him and this, that, and the other thing. So that's what brought us back together the first time, is me, you know, revealing that, hey, look, she's full of shit and everything else. We need to get back together, and that's what happened. So it was supposed to go on farther than that, but, you know, for some reason it never did.
Wow, I didn't know that you were going to be GTV. That's crazy.
I was also supposed to be Doink the Clown, Doink the Evil Clown. They were supposed to bring back, and I was supposed to be, when Chaz was doing the thing with the beaver thing, I was supposed to come back as Doink the Evil Clown. Did you take the deposits to the bank?
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that. That's nuts.
And how was it like having action figures and being in a video game?
It's great because I could actually play with myself and not get sticky.
uh,
That's funny. Are you into video games? Did you ever play as yourself in the game at all?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's got to be such a surreal moment just to know that you're in that game.
But it was fun because I could actually go to the store and stuff like that. My older kids, I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. They could actually see their dad on the shelf and stuff like that, and go, "Hey, that's my dad." The T-shirts and everything else. But it was such a hard way of life. I mean, I was married at the time. I had 2 young kids. I was gone 260 some days a year. 280 some days a year, and you're home for a day or two, and then you're gone again. So you never really get to see them grow up. You never really get to see any firsts of anything. You're home Christmas Day, but day after Christmas, you're gone.
Wow.
I remember there was a lot of times us wrestling the day after Christmas somewhere. Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
You're wrestling somewhere. Sunday afternoon, you're wrestling somewhere. So, it was definitely a hard way of life. And a lot of people think it's all glitz and glamour and fun and everything else. But I'll tell you what, you try living out of your suitcase for, a week, 2 weeks straight, or going to another country for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time and stuff like that. It's no easy task. It gets lonely. It's hard. It's definitely hard. It's definitely a different way of life. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy every single minute of it.
I do have to ask you, what is one of your favorite memories of being in the ring?
Being in the ring or outside the ring? Being in the ring,
either one.
WrestleMania 13 and winning the tag belts are the top 2. But one of the things that I always tell people, and because it's just such a funny story, is everybody has an Owen Hart story and everything else, and we have them too. I have 2 of them that I'll tell you real quick. Owen was always the prankster in the locker room. He was always doing stuff to the new guys and everything else. So one day we get done TV and me and Chaz go to leave and grab our bag, and oh shit, it was padlocked to each other. Owen padlocked our bags together. So he would do stuff like that. And then the one time we were leaving, and he didn't have a ride to the next town. So we were like, oh, you can come with us. He's like, all right, well, I don't have a hotel. So we were like, oh, don't worry about it. We have one and everything else. And he was like, oh, I'll see if they have any rooms. So we get to the hotel. There's no rooms, no nothing. So at this time, Owen Hart is European champion, tag team champ, and he was carrying around all the semis. So they had no rooms available for Owen, no nothing. We're like, Owen, you can stay in our room. We'll sleep on the floor. No, there's no way I'm letting you guys sleep on the floor. I'll sleep on the floor. I'll make a pallet. This is Owen Hart telling 2 guys that are brand new in the WWF, no, I'll sleep on your floor. So he takes all of our sheets or all of our, blankets off the bed, and he makes this nice soft pallet in the corner. He opens up his bag. He puts out the European champion. He puts out the tag team champion belt. He's like, all right, guys, I'm going to take a shower, and I'll be back. So he goes in, he takes a shower, he shuts the door. As soon as he shuts the door, we're picking up the belts, and we're jumping around the bed with him, going, ooh, look at us. Ooh, we got the belts, and everything else. And then we heard the shower stop and everything else, and we put the belts back and everything else, and he comes out, and he's trying off. He goes, did you guys have fun playing with the belts? And we're like, how did you know? He was like, that's why I laid them out, so you guys would play with the belts, because I know how you guys are. So it's just how Owen was. When we took our family and stuff like that to Philadelphia and we did TVs, he would always be in the lunchroom coloring with your kids. It was so different back then. It was so, I don't know, not how it is now. It was so, everybody was so, it felt like a family. Nobody was out to get somebody else's spot. Everybody knew where they were, and why they were there. We knew we weren't main eventers. Why? Because LOD was there.
Yeah.
Because me and Jesse were there. We knew we were mid-card at best. And that was fine. You got to know where your pecking order is in life. And that's where we were. And we were all right with that. Did we always want to do more? Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? Anybody would want to do more. Right. But, that's how.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the current state of wrestling. I don't know if you're an avid watcher of the current product. What are your thoughts on wrestling these days?
I do not watch it. I cannot tell you the last time I watched it. The thing I think is wrong with the wrestling today is there's no characters. You start having characters and people start buying into it, and then they get squished. Mm-hmm. For no reason. It's just people want. I believe people go to wrestling to escape reality. Right. To escape their real life. They go there so they can yell at the bad guys and cheer on the good guys. But they want characters. What was one of the biggest characters back in the Attitude Era? The Rock. Yeah. That's Johnson. He's not really like that. He's not that witty enough to come up with those sayings. Trust me, he's not. But Dwayne, I love him to death. But it was a character. He was The Rock, Steve Austin. He was a character. That's not the way Steve was. That's the way that's what the role he played on TV. Mm-hmm. So nowadays, everybody and their mother wants to be Steve Austin. There's only one Steve Austin. There's only one Rock. Right. There's only one Shawn Michaels. There'll never be another one. Come up with your own shit. It's just, I don't know. I think, Zack Ryder, that's a character. He made himself that way. Woo, woo, woo. That's entertaining. People want to go and be entertained. The Usos, they're entertaining. Yeah. It's just, I just don't think there's enough characters for people to care about. I think it's seen. I mean, where are they drawing? 3,000 people for a house show? If we didn't sell out a house show, we thought something was wrong. We were selling out house shows that were 13,000, 15,000 people.
Right.
And the lack of characters, actually, I mean, it's good. It's bad, but it's also kind of good because now the people can focus more on just the wrestling, which actually isn't that good for the heels and the faces, because right now, for example, Wade Barrett, he's supposed to be a heel, but the crowd just gets behind him because they think he's cool, They get behind. They don't realize the line of heel and face anymore because it's not there.
Right.
And do you think it has something to do with back in the day when the WWF and the WCW were doing more of their real names and more reality-based storylines? Do you think that kind of killed the characters?
Somewhat, I think.
I mean, I was just thinking of when Kevin Nash went over to WCW and they changed him up. He was Kevin Nash and not a character anymore. But
I mean, but the Kevin Nash you see on TV isn't the Kevin Nash of real life.
Right.
And it's just when you see John Cena outside the ring, is he really like he is inside the ring? Probably. He I remember him when he was, training out in California. Mm-hmm. And I think he was called the Prototype or something like that. And he kind of looked like, RoboCop. With his flat top and everything else. I remember when he first started, absolutely. And, it was just, I believe that's how John is outside the ring. He just like he is inside the ring. He seems very, I don't know, outgoing, I guess you would say. Mm-hmm. And then you hear stories from some of these fans, and I got to say this, about how unapproachable some people are and everything else. And I just have this to say about, I guess, the superstars of today. They better remember who butters their biscuit. It's the people paying their hard-earned money to come see your dumbass. They're the ones putting the money in your pocket. So for you to be ignorant and rude to a fan or a kid or somebody that wants to come up and have you sign an autograph or take a picture, you should be ashamed of yourself to call yourself a professional, because it doesn't matter how long it takes or how many pictures you have to take or anything else. Those people are paying to see you. Yes, you have your own personal life, but that's when you're at home. And if you're leaving the arena or something like that and somebody wants a picture or an autograph, you take the 5 minutes and you do that, because that's going to be something that's going to follow you forever. There will never, ever be a fan that told you that they met me or Chaz and we were rude or ignorant to them. Never. Because without those people, we wouldn't have jobs.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
The superstars today need to know that. Without those fans, they wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys will be taking pictures and autographs this Saturday. And I want to know what are your thoughts on returning to the Monster Factory?
I can't wait. I went there. It was probably this past it was probably this past WrestleMania. I was there doing a show, but I just went by myself. So to have me and Chaz actually go back, to where it all started and everything else, it means a lot. It means a lot. I just hope we have a great turnout and we will be there with 8x10s and taking pictures and signing autographs, kissing babies and signing boobies. So we'll do all that.
So what any final thoughts you wanted to say? Anything you wanted to drive home? I know you had a lot of good points there, but anything you wanted to say?
I think I pretty much covered everything.
All right. What's the best way to stay in touch with you?
Everybody can follow me on Twitter at GR Thrasher, THRASHER. And I follow everybody back. I try to answer all the questions and everything else. I'm an open book. Ask me and I will tell you. If you don't like the answer, don't ask me the question.
All right, cool, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on and talk to us.
All right, no problem, guys. Don't let your meatloaf.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right.
All right, I want to thank Thrasher one more time for coming on. That was an awesome interview, Chase. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's definitely got to be my favorite interview. No offense to anybody else we've interviewed, but he was just such a nice person and was so funny too. He's an open book. He's so funny. He's just an everyday type of guy who loves the fact that he got the opportunity to become a pro wrestler. He appreciates the fans, like you heard. It's great.
I think it's awesome that he just picked up the Owen Hart's belts and started dancing around the hotel room with it.
Yeah.
That's the funniest thing ever. He just seems like a super fan who became a super, once he got into the business, he became a super huge geek, and it was awesome that he did that. And he definitely was part of that Marilyn Manson type era. I remember Goldust was around there at that time. Mm-hmm. But he was one a huge one. But it was awesome to talk to him. I really enjoyed that interview. Like you said, probably one of my favorite interviews too, just because of just the way he tells his stories. If I could just sit down and talk to him forever, it'd be awesome. Just rack his
I know. He had
bit.
So many great stories.
Yeah, it's so good. So I think that about wraps it up. Again, I'm going to be packing my bags, heading out here. So, Chase, I will hopefully if I'm on the road, I can get into contact with you and tweet you or something and sit down and do a podcast together. I don't know when I'll be able to do that, but we'll figure it out. I'll get in contact with you. But any final thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Well, this Saturday at the Monster Factory, Paulsboro, New Jersey. You guys should show up. Bell time is at 7, but doors open at 6 o'clock so you can meet the Headbangers. It's going to be awesome. I'm going. I'll have flyers so you can know who I am. And you get to see the Headbangers return. Mike Mondo is going to be there. The Monster Factory Championship is going to be defended June 21st. It is. So this is awesome. I hope to see any of you there. You got any other things, Tony?
I don't know. That's about it. You want to do your typical signing out?
Yes. Like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you. Watch it.